Happy Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. And today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 83, 1 through 4, and then 13 through 18, Exodus 5, 1 through 6, and verse 13, Revelation 3, 7 through 13, or you could have read Psalm 17 and 2 Samuel 11, 27 through 12, 15, and then again end up with Revelation. Today, I'm going to look at the passage from Exodus 5, which is Exodus 5, 1 through 6, 13. But I'm really going to spend more time than anything on probably verses 3 through 8 of this. And I want to talk about the tyranny of work. And I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. I'm not really sure if it makes much sense to me, but it's something I've thought about in the past. And then there was something in this text that really got to me about how Pharaoh deals with the request of the people of Israel, that actually God's request through Moses and Aaron to let the people go and celebrate a festival to him in the wilderness. And it's the way that he deals with that. And it just leads me to this, once again, to this idea, the idea of the tyranny of work. And I think it's something that we kind of deal with without really dealing with it in this world today. Now, what do I mean by the tyranny of work? Well, let me put it this way. Have you ever had a time where you were in worship or you were just worshiping and you kind of felt guilty because you felt like you weren't using your time very effectively? Like there was something more you could be like you should be doing something else. Like you know that you were frittering away your time by going to church and worshiping God and spending time with other people and singing songs and stuff like that. It happens, and I'm sure there are people getting what I'm saying. I remember one time I was taking a class in college, and a friend of mine in the course of the class was talking about how are Christians, are we wasting our time on Sunday mornings when we could be out doing the work of the church? And I thought, you are missing the point of what that time is for. You have 6 days upon which you can do the work of the church. This day is for God, and it doesn't serve the purposes that you're thinking of. So the tyranny of work. Well, like I said, in verses 1 and then again in 3, the request comes, let us go. Let my people go so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. And then the other place is there in verse 3. It says, let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God. And the people, God asks, through Moses and Aaron, the people ask basically for time off to go celebrate a festival to God. That doesn't, shouldn't sound like a horrible request. And at this point, they're not even really saying that they're just going to go away and not come back. They just want time off. They just want time to go. And they want time for leisure and festival and time away from work. And that's the thing, is that worshiping God is separate from work. Like I said to my friend, that's not the point of Christian worship. It's not about work. It's about God. It's about worshiping God is separate from work. It's a time and a space in which we contemplate God and his creation and our place in it. This guy named Joseph Pieper is a guy I really like, and he's really the one who kind of opened my eyes on this. He says that in leisure, man too celebrates the end of his work by allowing his inner eye to dwell for a while upon the reality of the creation. He looks and affirms it is good. In other words, real leisure, right? Real festival that we're talking about, this real Sabbath that God offers us, is a time to, think about it this way. At the end of the creation narrative in Genesis, God sits back after he's worked all week, kicks back on his porch. This is just always how I picture it. Kicks back on the porch, puts his feet up on the railing and looks around at what he's done and says, this is good. Well, real worship, real leisure, real Sabbath is God inviting us to join him on the porch and contemplate how good this creation is, and contemplate the fact that we're a part of this good creation, that we really can live into being a part of this creation the way God intended. That's what this is all about. And I think the people show a lot of foresight, Moses and Aaron, when he says, if we don't go out and we don't have this time to be at rest with God, to contemplate God, there's going to be all kinds of things fall upon us. That's probably pretty good. If you don't take time to just be apart from work, you get bad things happen to you. So how does Pharaoh respond to this? Pharaoh's response is get back to work. Basically, in 5:4, it says, get to your labors. And there's something in the fallen human nature that sees no value, in true worship, in that deep Sabbath contemplation of God and his goodness. There's something about our fallen humanity that just doesn't see any value or any purpose in that whatsoever. And then he says to his taskmasters, right? He says, but you shall require of them, that's the people of Israel. He says, you shall require of them the same number of bricks as they have made previously. Do not diminish it, for they are lazy. And what I forgot to put in on this is like right before this, he says to them, all right, they have to make the same number of bricks, but you're not going to provide the straw anymore. And I talked about this a while ago, that, to make bricks, you got to have straw. It's what binds it all together. So he is intentionally making their work harder, and he is not going to give them any leeway. So now they have to go source everything themselves, and he's making their work harder for them. And it's because he sees their request to go off and to have a festival to worship God as laziness. And I think a lot of us have that little kind of Pharaoh in our hearts where we don't feel comfortable with doing the real contemplation of God, the real worship of God, where we don't do anything but contemplate God. We see it, maybe we're very uncomfortable with it. We don't feel like we're being very effective or very productive. And Pharaoh got it. Pharaoh knew how this worked. Pharaoh knew how to oppress thoughts of God. He goes on to say right after that was verse 5:8 and 5:9. He says, let heavier work be laid on them, then they will labor with it and pay no attention to deceptive words. In other words, we're going to just burden them so much with physical labor and tyrannize them so much with that they won't have time. They will have no interest in contemplating God. And that's a pretty demonic thing. So the freedom of leisure, the freedom to have leisure in the presence of God, to take time and to just experience God and to contemplate God. God calls them out to celebrate a festival to him. Pharaoh talks about they'll have no time for deceptive words. What were the deceptive words, I guess, I'm wondering, that Pharaoh was so scared about? And, I guess he's worried that if the people were allowed the time for festivities, for rest and for contemplation of God and their relationship, to him, that they would no longer be satisfied with their place in Pharaoh's house, that they would no longer be satisfied with their being identified as people who are just there to work for Pharaoh, that if they really had the opportunity to get out and contemplate who they were and formulate this new idea of themselves as related to being the children of the Creator rather than just the slaves of Pharaoh, there would be no going back. So that is the outcome of true leisure, that real worship of God offers us. In the real worship of God, we are no longer merely workers identified and quantified by how effective our labors have been. We're not valued by how many bricks we've made, or how many widgets we've boxed, or how many we've sold, or how many views our worship event has gotten on social media, how many it did or did not have. What we are offered in worship is the opportunity to become open to what it is that God has done and will do in us, right? that this idea that God has begun a good work in us, and that we contemplate the fact that he's done that and he is faithful to complete it. Does that sound familiar? We come to enjoy the goodness in us that only comes from communion with God. That's what true worship, that's what having the time to leisurely contemplate God and our relationship to him and our relationship to this creation that he's made. That's what it offers us. And that's what Pharaoh was afraid of. And I think perhaps that's what a lot of us are probably afraid of too. We're afraid to cast off these old metrics of how we determine our value and our worth. And we're kind of afraid to just throw it on to God. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Go spend some time in leisure. Boop.